In today's video, we're going to go through the different starter classes in Dark Souls. A starter class is literally just that. It is a character template for starting the game with. So unless you're a veteran player wanting to do a very specific build without wasting any levels, it doesn't really matter which class you pick. Within an hour or so of playing, you will have leveled up your character past the point where it doesn't even make a difference. The Warrior is a good all-round choice due to the character's combination of high strength and dexterity, allowing them to make use of most early game equipment that they come across. This class has very limited access to magic and miracles in the beginning of the game, mostly due to low stats in intelligence, attunement and faith. However, with a few points in each, a warrior can start using basic spells and miracles very quickly. The warrior's stats allow for otherwise high-level weapons and armour to be used very early on in the game. For example, a warrior can equip and use weapons such as the Drake Sword, Zweihander, Gravelord's Sword, Black Knight's Sword and the Black Knight's Shield with a few level ups invested into strength. A warrior's starting equipment is excellent for a variety of combat styles, as the long sword allows for a solid chain of attacks that deals consistent amounts of damage, and the heater shield allows the warrior to block 100% of physical damage right from the start of the game. The strength of the warrior's armour and gear allows a careful player to confidently engage in combat with enemies that are of a higher level, for example the Black Knights, without fear of dying a horrible death, making it a good choice for new players that want to enjoy the experience of this game. The Knight is a tank class, starting with the highest vitality and defense values of all classes, as well as the most robust equipment. This does mean that the Knight moves slowly, so you will need to fight carefully and expect to take some hits. Most weapons are easily equipped by a Knight, and their faith stat is high enough to use miracles for healing with minor investment, but you'll need to learn the miracle and acquire a talisman first. Also, a very easy class for new players, as its high HP and strong armour help you survive even if you make mistakes. The reference in the character generation screen to knights being not easily toppled is an apparent reference to the relatively high combined poise of the knight's starting armour, which makes the knight better able to continue taking action when struck by an enemy, rather than becoming stunned. It does not reflect any innate ability to resist being knocked down compared to any other starting class. Knight starts with a shield that allows to block 100% of physical damage right from the start of the game. This class starts with the Covenant of the White and the Prayer Gesture. Wanderers are another good all-round class, but with a focus on speed and evading rather than high defence. Their vitality is relatively low, and their armour is also nothing to write home about, so they can't take many hits. The Scimitar is a very useful starting weapon due to the class's high dexterity and the weapon's high attack speed. You'll want to use fast combos to take out enemies before they can attack. You will also have the option to fight at range with spells, as all you need is a wand and a trainer, thanks to the decent attunement and intelligence stats. The high dexterity also makes this class able to use bows after you acquire them. An intermediate class that relies on speed and evasion to survive, requiring a certain level of skill from the player. The high critical bonus of the Bandit's knife the thief wields makes his backstabs and ripostes very deadly, and their main source of damage versus strong foes. The target shield is very weak when blocking, and instead more suited to parrying, which is an acquired skill that must be practiced. Thieves aren't a resilient class due to light armour, very low vitality and a weak shield, but have high mobility. The attack speed of the Bandit's knife make it a solid one-on-one weapon, but the lack of range and swing arc make the thief weak when facing multiple opponents. They can wield bows early, but most swords will only be usable dual-handed due to the low strength. Decent levels in attunement, intelligence and faith means early access to both spells and miracles after you acquire the necessary catalysts and trainers. They also come with the Master Key by default, which allows them to access many locked doors much easier than other classes that would be forced to take the key as a gift to have the same benefit. This means the Thief can effectively start the game with 2 gifts by choosing something besides the Master Key during character creation. Selecting black firebombs, for example, makes it very easy to kill the Asylum Demon during the first confrontation in the Asylum. This class's fragile constitution and low range make it a difficult class for beginners, as even small mistakes can cause the Thief's demise. Experienced players, however, will enjoy the high damaging backstabs that will enable the Thief to deal with enemies stronger than them in a one-on-one battle. The reference to quiet footsteps in the Thief's official description during character generation is similar to the Knight, an apparent reference to its lighter starting equipment, which makes the Thief quieter than a player in heavier armour. The Thief is not inherently more quiet than any other player if both are using identical armour. The Bandit specialises in hard-hitting physical attacks and is great with weapons such as axes and straight swords. The starting battle axe is great for the game's early areas, where dealing with enemies using as few hits as possible is important. Their high endurance and strength will mean that of all classes they deal the most melee damage at the beginning of the game. The Bandit's magic stats are poor, so magic will require some investment before it can be used. Miracles do come by easier, but still require an investment. Their starting armour isn't that great, but you'll have no trouble dodging or equipping better armour as you find them. Bandit starts with a shield that allows to block 100% of physical damage right from the start of the game. This class is suitable to both experienced players and beginners, with decent defence and a very strong offence. If you want pure melee combat with an emphasis on offence, look no further, the Bandit is for you. Hunters are a complete mix of combat styles. This means hunters have no speciality of their own and rely instead on exploiting their enemies' weaknesses. Starting access to a bow and respectable strength allow this class to equip almost any early weapon, especially weapons that favour dexterity. Their light armour load means they can evade well, so using quick weapons to strike and retreat is a good idea. Using magic will require some investment, but it is accessible. You should only use the bow to weaken strong enemies before engaging them in melee or to pick enemies from a group without having to fight them all at the same time. Be mindful of the number of arrows, as until you meet a merchant you won't have a way to restock. Light armour and normal HP make this a rather fragile class, but with good mobility and a great versatility, there should be little the hunter can't take on early. A good class for intermediate players that enjoy multiple playstyles that don't rely on magic. Similar to the Knight and the Thief, the official character description's reference to being vulnerable to magic appears to be a reference to the hunter's initial gear and does not reflect any innate weakness to magic compared to other characters. If you want to use magic as your primary offensive tool, then the Sorcerer is the best class to begin with. The Soul Arrow will be your primary source of damage early in the game, and with 30 rechargeable uses, you can use it even on weaker enemies unlike the Hunter's Bow. Their high attunement and intelligence makes learning more sorcery and pyromancy very easy. Using physical weapons will be a struggle, however, so at first you'll be limited to your dagger and other light weapons. This can provide you with a fallback at times when enemies are resistant to your magic or all your uses are gone. A single point in attunement will increase your magic slots to 4. If you make good use of bonfires to restock the spells, this class shouldn't have much trouble with early enemies. Very low vitality and light armour make the Sorcerer very fragile and prone to death in ambushes, where his Soul Arrow is rendered almost useless. If ambushed by multiple foes, your best course of action is to make use of good speed to retreat and gain time to cast your spells. This class is suited for intermediate or experienced players that favour magic. Beginners looking for magic should try the Pyromancer class instead. The Pyromancer is a popular class for both beginners and experienced players. Combining powerful fire magic with decent melee weapon ability, the Pyromancer has good offensive options from the start, and also begins with 2 spell slots. As the only class that starts at level 1, you can level up early at a lower cost, and have a bit more flexibility about the direction of your build when aiming for a particular level character. The hand axe is also a decent starting weapon, with a good mixture of damage output and attack speed that is very effective in the early areas of the game, and if upgraded, can remain viable throughout the game. You should aim to use melee attacks to deal with weak enemies and save your low use fireballs when facing groups of enemies or stronger foes. The fireball allows you to take down some powerful enemies early on much easier than other classes. Low vitality and light armour do make this class fragile. The Pyromancer is a good choice for all players due to the high damaging capabilities, lack of strong weaknesses and the low cost of the first levels. Just be careful of ambushes and your low HP. Finally, as the Pyromancer hails from the poisonous Great Swamp area in and around Blighttown, its starting equipment has very good poison resistance and is more valuable and effective than its appearance or titles would suggest. The Pyromancer Flame, the Pyro Glove, eventually gets intelligence scaling, but that scaling does not affect spell damage. The intelligence scaling you receive only affects the damage you do while using the Pyromancer Flame as a melee weapon. Intelligence is not a required stat for Pyromancy, and there is virtually no benefit to adding points in intelligence unless you plan on using sorcery spells. Clerics can use miracles to heal from the start, thanks to their high starting faith stat and equipped talisman. Their other stats are fairly balanced, so you'll have plenty of freedom in weapon selection after a few level ups. The low dexterity does hamper this a little, but you can use weapons such as maces and hammers to get around this or invest a little in dexterity. The Cleric's starting heal miracle allows them to explore further than other classes that rely on Estus flasks alone, and saves them a significant amount of souls at low level. The miracle otherwise costs 4,000 souls to obtain. Aim to use the heal miracle outside battle, and use the Estus flasks in battle when necessary, because the heal miracle is slow to activate and leaves you open to attack. Their light armour and defence means they can't take as many hits as a knight, and no heal miracle will help you when your HP reaches 0. Don't be too afraid to use Estus flasks in battle to avoid death, or escape the battle to use the miracle. The Cleric is a good class for beginners and intermediate players, or those seeking a warrior that relies on strength and faith, as it starts at a low level which allows for greater customization, yet already has a good stat distribution focused on strength and faith, and with another spell slot available upon investment of 1 more point in attunement. This class starts with Covenant of the White and the Prayer Gesture. The Deprived can be considered the professional class, as its terrible lineup of starting equipment makes the beginning stages of the game much harder to get through until you find better weapons and armour. There is little benefit players will get from the Deprived, as all its stats start at 11, so he will not be as specialised as other classes. This does however give a challenge in the early stages, as their lack of equipment means you won't be able to take any hits, so it relies on the player more than the other classes. The balanced stats do mean the Deprived has early access to magic, sorcery and miracles, and most early weapons and armour. Pick this class if you want to strain your skills to the utmost. So to summarise, if you are interested in melee combat, I would recommend the Warrior class. Or if you would like to have a good mixture of melee and magic attacks, then the Pyromancer is not only a solid class, it is also a lot of fun. Thank you for watching. I really hope the information in this guide has helped you with your first step in playing Dark Souls. I'd really appreciate it if you could click the like button and drop the channel a subscribe, and why not let me know which class you chose in the comments section below. If you also need some help on which starter gift to choose, check out this next video.